Hello, lovely people of the internet. My name is Husky or Moon, and welcome back to the Chaos of the Internet podcast. Today, we have made it to episode 5, where today we are talking about COVID. I'm sure you've heard us mention COVID plenty of times in the previous episodes, and yes, the topic will go over some of those things again, but just in a tiny bit more detail. It's safe to say that in March of 2020, the world kind of came to a freeze. Social isolation became a real thing for everyone when lockdown came into effect. What I mean by social isolation in this context is that we were all separated. The only people we had were family, and even then, some of us didn't have family. We were all left to FaceTime, Zoom, video chat, Skype with anyone, and some people got left. When lockdown happened, most countries shut down their borders and cut all flights, leaving some people who were citizens of other countries stranded in a completely new environment. It was a lot of change and it happened very quickly, and no one was ready for it. No job, no school, no one. 2020 fell on a The COVID incident of 2020 fell on a very unfortunate year as it was a political year, which means politics were thriving. Everything also got turned virtual. Weddings, retirements, funerals, a whole new job arc opened for people creating online classes for people. Everything got turned to the online atmosphere, and this is why I think COVID is a very key part to the internet. When we got told to go on lockdown, no one was prepared. No one prepared for a pandemic that would socially isolate everyone, that would keep us all in our houses. I remember when my parents got the message from my school saying that school was shifting to online. I was at a doctor's appointment and unsure what online would even look like. I was unsure that if it was going to be a positive or negative atmosphere. From a student's perspective, it has changed the way we have done school entirety to this day. I like to refer as post-COVID and pre-COVID. It is common to see assignments online now with no option for paper. Some schools are 50-50 for paper. Some people don't have it at all. For example, my school. It is rare to see anyone hand out a paper assignment, and in my opinion, I would work better on a paper assignment. Now that we're online, it's more working independently. It is teachers giving us lectures and then off to do a set assignment, and that can be confusing for some students. But others, like myself, is better for a face-to-face teaching, where 2020 tanked our grades. I went from a straight A student to a C and barely passing, and to this day I still struggle with keeping up with the online criteria. When COVID first hit back in March of 2020, teachers didn't know what to do. It was a completely new atmosphere, and as much as teaching was slowly going towards the internet more, it was not at the rate COVID needed it to be. It took a few weeks for teachers to redo everything they had planned. Lesson plans got thrown out the window, and they had to meet the bare minimum requirements for our grades. This sadly had repercussions, as most kids didn't get the needed criteria they needed for future classes. For example, if you took an algebra class and you needed to take more algebra-based classes later on, some of those students have reported that they didn't feel prepared for those classes. Hoping that Teachers also couldn't enforce attendance. It was almost impossible. They had to teach everything through a Zoom or Google Meet, hoping that students would actually show up to those meetings, with some of those meetings having no attendance at all. Meanwhile, other teachers just gave assignments and only did occasional check-ins that were optional. These videos and assignments didn't really do the work they needed to, and it was easy for kids to cheat on without anyone to know. Today, it's expected for kids sick at home to get their work done. Why? Because everything's online. In my school, for example, we use Canvas to turn work in. So this means that we can read the assignment, but it doesn't mean we understand the assignment. For students like me, it's hard to understand some of these assignments, and some of these assignments are not translated very well. Of course, other people have opinions on this, and that is completely valid. It's not just school that went online too, it's also many jobs. Jobs have either turned online or hybrid jobs. When I say hybrid, I mean they work at home mostly and then they do one or two things in person at the said business. This has been great for businesses as they can hire people more outside their reach. It is no longer having to find people within the same city, but also finding people everywhere. This is made possible by programs and video meetings that have been created by the pandemic. A lot more things got invented, like Zoom, that got more expanded upon, but also video regulation expanded upon greatly too. There's other ways that school has changed too. It's also come to the benefit that for early college classes that some of us can take these online without having to actually go to the campus, and that most campuses for college now also use online classes. When filling out applications, you can choose whether you want to be in person or online, and some majors apply for that and some don't. It depends. Looking towards my audience in my Discord for opinions, I asked one very simple question this week. I asked them, did you like the internet better pre or post COVID? The answers are very different, and I feel like they bring up some valid points. One being, after COVID, there was a lot more homework, but a lot less books. And that's another problem that schools face now is literacy rates. Younger kids were shoved on tablets, and with my experience with working with 4 and 3-year-olds for a year, it is very evident that a lot of them are nonverbal and need extra work to be able to socialize. A lot of them haven't picked up on social factors that they should when they're younger. Why? Again, everybody was shoved on iPads as a younger kid. There was no time to go out to parks and socialize. There was no big events. Everybody was on lockdowns with masks. Grocery shopping trips were even rare. Even then, even getting meds were even rare to go get. Most meds ended up being shipped via online pharmacies. Also, but at the same time, it created a lot more time for all of us to socialize on the internet and chill out for a while, which has created new adventures for some people. It has expanded fandoms a lot more in communities. There has been one major negative that has come with COVID, and that was the social media boom. In words of Harris, the social media boom during COVID has caused many issues and definitely has become more of a cesspool in extremities and conspiracy theorist. It has contributed to severe mental health issues and has just become an exploit by capitalism as everything else. And for some of that is true. And for other parts, it's not necessarily all just the negatives. It has created an outlet for most of us to socialize and share our lives with other people on the internet, as much as that can also be dangerous. Mental health wise, online mental health sources have skyrocketed. Why have it skyrocketed? Well, that's just because in general, mental health problems have skyrocketed. And the younger generations, a lot more depression and anxiety are saw. Social. Just smack the mouse a bit. That works. Okay. Social media. 2020 ended up being more of a political year as voting had gone into effect and that it was Trump versus Biden. And the stakes were high. It had a lot of controversy, and the questions about how to handle COVID were some of their own. Social media has helped expand on so many things, and during COVID, another thing that some people got blinded to were protests. Protests became a very crucial, evident part of 2020. If looking at it, we would not know anything, like the George Floyd incident. Most people were protesting, and as much as this was harmful for the fact that we had a pandemic going on, it also brought community to our country. It was everybody coming together for one cause and in support of each other. Communities have uplifted each other too. During this time, COVID had the highest unemployment rate, and tripling the employment rate and putting people at the thousands applying for unemployment. things like stimulus checks had to be approved for people because there was no way of functioning with all of the lack of jobs. Some simple jobs even got replaced by bots and AI. For example, in a local gas station of mine, all you have to do is place the items on a counter and everything is scanned, and all you have to do is pay and leave. It can be as simple as that. That takes away one job for someone. At the same time, like I have mentioned earlier, though, with virtual jobs, the job outreach is a lot larger. It just takes time for finding them. And saying that you work well in an online environment. Everything was very simplistic pre-COVID. Interactions were normal. There was no need to worry about a face mask or plastic shields, or if someone had a cough, then they would just cough in their arm, not that they needed a mask and an ER trip immediately to get tested. Brooks adds to the social media saying, I liked social media before COVID. Yeah, during COVID, it was nice to be home and have technology, but for me, to have extreme social anxiety, social problems, and overall just made them feel isolated. But at the same time, it helped with their social anxiety in the case because they got better at talking with people. And that's just because of something I mentioned in the past, where sometimes you can mask who you really are. You can be anyone you want to be, and someone might not ever remember you. The internet is a very vast place, but many people also started sharing their lives on the internet. It could have been simple as just cooking videos. Some people just experiencing how other countries were handling lockdowns. Like I said, some people from other countries got locked out of their own home countries because of COVID. Monty also responds to the question that I've asked, saying, honestly, pre-COVID wasn't really a thing for them, other than Netflix. My usage of the internet only took effect during COVID because what I used for school and hanging with my friends during the pandemic. So, internet increased dramatically over COVID, and that's because it was needed. If we didn't increase our usage of the internet, then we would be more isolated than what we were already. Wolf also says, I definitely prefer the internet pre-COVID. Back then it felt like a space for exploration and connection without the weight of the world on our shoulders. Social media was vibrant, and online interactions were often lighthearted. We could engage in discussion, share memes, and enjoy viral moments without an underlying tension of a global pandemic. The global pandemic title, like Flatten the Bell Curve, vaccines, all these things, plus the political draw in the US, it created a lot of tension, and everybody can feel it. Anytime you opened any social media app, it would be something about COVID or politics. Post-COVID, well, the internet has served a lifetime for many. It has become a place of constant anxiety and diversity, with so much information and often overwhelming and contradictory. It's easy to feel lost, frustrated. Virtual events, while necessary, can't replicate the same energy of an in-person gathering, which I can completely agree with. At the same time, gatherings were very dangerous back then, but for example, I went to a convention in 2021 after the 2020 convention got canceled. During this time, they had the requirement of either wearing a mask or having your vaccine with a vaccine card. Most people retaliated though and didn't wear masks at all, and there was no way for everybody to be stopped. It was more like everybody trying to stay safe, but with around 14,000 people in the convention building, it was bound that someone probably would have gotten sick. Continuing with what Wolf said, however, I do appreciate the resilience and creative people have shown online since the pandemic. Many communities have formed, focusing on support and collaboration. It's a mixed bag, really. I appreciate the simplicity of pre-COVID interactions, but I am grateful for the connections that have emerged in these challenging times. Like I had mentioned before, communities grew stronger than ever. And also parades. Parades grew stronger than ever. Birthday parades, retirement parades. It was the best way we could show our support for other members in our community without getting close. I had heard from Civic that his graduation has a tradition now of having a graduation parade. So COVID did do some positives, thankfully. Other positives that came out of COVID can actually be wider than we thought. It's created more of a social networking atmosphere along with mental health atmosphere. There are more materials for us to use. Sadly, in the negative atmosphere, there's also things like AI, things that make it harder for teachers to know that their students aren't cheating. And that's another thing that was a struggle for teachers. As much as kids would not show up, some assignments could be cheated on or videos by just looking them up online. And again, there's also a positive to it. Some apps now have created online tutoring. A large amount of online tutoring formed during COVID, actually. Things like the Brainly app and expanding on Quizlet. Things that we maybe have used prior to COVID, but became more prominent and expanded on after COVID, like Google Meetings. Google Meetings was just a video chat app, very simplistic. Now you can do complete presentations on it, show off what you've done. It's very easy to share anything on the internet, like this podcast. You are here watching this podcast because of the internet. The internet as a whole has expanded, and as much as that, so has the content. I think COVID accelerated the environment, pretty much. Put everything on speed dial. COVID accelerated coursework. And not to mention the health standards. The health of COVID and the internet is one big can of worms. I remember that sometimes health workers couldn't even get home to their families. The best they could do was screen share with them or video call them. There was a gap. And it was great for social media was great for some of our healthcare workers because they got to see what was happening on the outside while they were doing all this hard work on the inside. Not to mention first responders who took the brunt, having to wear PPE to every call that had a cough. To this day, it's a requirement for some of us to wear masks when they have a cough. So, and it's important because you can look at today, and maybe it's not COVID, but recently ammonia, the bacterial kind, has been spreading around. So it is important to watch our health. Also, virtual health meetings have expanded greatly, and now you can get a consult just online for any problem you have. It seems like COVID has just expanded our horizons about social media more than anything. It can take some time, and it's taking time for everybody to adjust to. And there's no doubt in saying that it won't get better or worse. It's only time to tell and for us to adjust to. There is no way we can go back to pre-COVID, as much as it was wholesome, a light environment, and less stressful. And as much as now that social media carries an anxiety environment, there are still some positives. It's more just avoiding the toxicity of the internet. We are now able we're now able to be brought together more than ever. Today, I can sit in a group of 10 to 15 people and have a conversation about the internet at any minute. And that's how this podcast was really mostly formed. The fact that I had friends who were willing to give some time to talk about the internet. And we will continue. Until we see you again. And until episode 6. Good night, chat. And have a good one. What did you burn?
I'll be right back.
Spaghetti and water.
This is the second time I've done this.
What did you do now?
I didn't record my audio.
Oh, that's your fault, man. You put it on the fire.
Oh my god, that's great.